This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we have found to work best when dealing with teens and tough issues.
This is Let's Talk Teens with Abbi and Cheree, episode 22, Conversations to Keep Your Teens Safe.
Cheree, I had the inspiration for this podcast topic that we're going to talk about today when one of my legit friends, not somebody that I know and I've kind of heard of, like one of my legit friends got scammed out of $15,000 from an online scam. And it was interesting that as, I've been like, guys, my friend got scammed. Everybody I know is like, oh yeah, I got a call and they were trying to scam me on this, or I almost got scammed doing this, right? So I thought, you know what? We need to have a conversation of how to keep your teens safe because it's your teenage years, right? With access to a phone and a little bit more independence, that you are more susceptible to some scary things that just exist in our world. So I thought, let's talk about this and how to keep your teens safe.
I love it. I think it is so needed. I think sometimes I'm on the verge of getting scammed because there's some really real seeming texts and emails that go out that I get.
Yes. Oh my gosh. They're sophisticated, right? I feel like I'm a smart person. And then I'm like, wait, I think I'm getting scammed, right? So, one of the first things I want to just kind of get out of the way, I think most parents know this, but I just want to reiterate the importance of this, is the first thing to talk to your teen about is body safety. I had an interesting experience, Cheree, where I had been going to a chiropractor. I mean, I'm like in my late 20s, right? I'm going to a chiropractor for the first time and kind of using that kind of holistic health that I hadn't done before. And I was loving it. And then later on in the news, I noticed that there was a local story about how this chiropractor was like being inappropriate with clients and stuff. And it rattled me to my core because I had gone to this guy, right? And I remember thinking, man, am I smart enough to know the difference between a person in authority, such as like a doctor, of what's okay and what's not okay? And have I mentally kind of gone through a checklist and feel confident enough in myself that if I felt like something was inappropriate, that I would say something and speak up. And so I think it's so important. Our teens are so self-conscious. They're so just figuring out the whole world. It's important as a parent. I know we sometimes look at them and go, oh, they're practically adults. They're taller than me, right? But it's important to talk about body safety. What's okay? What's appropriate at a doctor's visit? What's not? What's appropriate with hanging out with friends? One thing that's very characteristic of teenagers that we don't usually talk about is that they are so huggy and so touchy. So it's really common for teens to poke each other, to hug each other. And there's nothing wrong with this, but making sure as a parent, you've checked in with your teen and said, listen, I just want to make sure you always feel safe. You feel like you're in control of your own body. And these are things that are appropriate and these are things that are not appropriate. And Cheree, the other day, I was panicking as a mom because, my kids are little. And it was one of the first times that my son was going to go play at a family's house that I didn't know. And I can't even tell you. I mean, I coach on this, I talk on this, and I was so awkward in the car. I was like, hey, like just to go over some rules, right? Nobody can help you go to the bathroom, right? Nobody can do all these things. And my poor child was probably just sitting there going, okay, like whatever, mom, right? And so it can be hard and it can be awkward, but it's so good to check in with our teen, even if we feel like, oh, they totally know that. I've talked to them about that since they were 5. It's just a good idea to always check in on body safety and what's appropriate and what's not.
Absolutely. And maybe your 5-year-old was sitting there thinking, what the heck? And maybe the teen will when your teenager will when you're talking to them about body safety. It's okay if they're kind of like, what the heck? This is weird. It's such good information. It's so important for them to know what's safe and what's not. And to add to that, I think it's so important to teach our teens that if something feels off to them, to listen to that gut feeling. Like, they're, and I know, they can rationalize it in their head, oh, I'm just being silly, I'm just being ridiculous. No, there is a reason they're feeling uncomfortable, and to listen to that gut, trust their gut. And then also just to have this open door policy where they know that no matter what it is, they can come talk to you about it, that you are safe. If something is uncomfortable, please come and talk to me about it. Please know that I'm here to listen. And then we have to be careful as parents that we don't say things like, oh, you're overreacting, or I don't think they meant anything by that, or are you sure that just wasn't an accident? That we really listen to what they're saying.
Amen to that, right? Because if we can empower a teen to trust, their gut, they're gonna keep themselves safe. Now, the second thing to talk to your teen about is scams, right? And you knew that was coming because that's what my ideology was behind this podcast. But it's so real and prevalent. I promise, if you talk to your teen and say, hey, have you ever gotten like a scam text or a message on Facebook or anything? They're going to say, yeah. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, I got this one that there was a package that couldn't be delivered to me, right? And it wants you to click on this link. I think it's so important to talk about these because they're really smart, like conniving people that are trying to get your money, right? Trying to get your information. And so all of us, we're not smarter than scams, right? We always think, oh, I'll know it in a minute. But just teaching general practices of, okay, don't click links from people you don't know. If you're like, I don't have a package, right? Like think about things like that. I love when my friend got scammed, my dad, because the scam was like that the government was trying to get a hold of them and that they were gonna be arrested, right? It's always high stakes. That's another thing to talk to your teen about. It'd be like, hey, if you ever feel like something's high stakes and somebody's telling you you are in a bunch of trouble, you call me, right? And that's the number one thing with these scams is they'll say, don't get off the phone with me or don't share this with anybody for this and this reason, right? But just make sure you pound home with your teen. You call me because if you really were in trouble or if you really had done something bad, you're going to want to talk to an adult or a lawyer, right? So my always defense, I tell my family and my kids, I'm like, listen, you call mom. You call mom and we'll lawyer up, right? So you don't do anything or say anything. And it's just a good defense for your teen to be like, oh, I just know even if it's claiming to be the police that are calling me, like I call my mom and then we'll take care of it from there.
I think one of the biggest red flags our teens need to know is whenever anyone says, whether it's a scam, whether it's body safety, whether it's something else, but whenever anyone says, "Oh, don't tell anyone," or don't talk to anyone about this, or don't get off the phone, or whatever, whenever they're trying to keep you in an isolated space, that is a red flag. Always, no matter what it is.
Now, the other thing to talk to your teen about, which is going to seem similar, you're going to go, Abby, wait, we just talked about this, but online safety. And there's a little bit of a difference, right? Between somebody actively trying to scam you and just being safe online. Now, I think one of the best defenses for our teens with online safety is to share real life stories and real life examples because I think your teen hopefully knows right through school and through your guidance of I shouldn't be talking to strangers online. I shouldn't be sending inappropriate pictures. But I just always pound home to teens, we feel like our phone is an extension of us, and it's not. Like, we always, people, like, if you try to take away a teenager's phone, they're going to freak out and feel like, don't you trust me, right? And this is part of me. We should teach our teens to distrust their phones, to just automatically assume that it already has the info, nothing is private, right? And so when we just automatically assume nothing is private on my phone, that will keep us safe in a lot of ways. So, with online safety, another thing to talk to your teen about, which is my last tip for you, is shame. Talking to your child and keeping them safe when it comes to shame. Now, you might think, oh, that's kind of interesting. That doesn't relate to the others, right? One of these is not like the others. Well, when it comes to especially online choices that your teen has made, maybe they've shared some inappropriate pictures or sent nudes to somebody, teaching your teen and saying, listen, obviously, I don't want you to do that, but it's never too late to come talk to me, right? It's never too late to turn around. And this came from a real life story that I knew here locally that This boy had been inappropriately texting this girl and asking her for nudes, right? And she was kind of playing along, but then what she did is she screenshotted that conversation and put it live on her like Snapchat so everybody could see with his name, right? Which not probably great on her part, but also it was inappropriate of him to be doing that anyway. So then the whole school knew, right, that he had been asking this girl for nudes, and he said that it just became this whole wave. People would make jokes about him. He couldn't go anywhere and not have somebody comment or say horrible things about how gross he was. And he just said he didn't want to tell his parents because he was so ashamed. But he said it finally got so bad at school and of people just isolating him for this, making fun of him, making comments about it, that he, was contemplating suicide. And so finally, he talked to his parents about it, and his parents were able to go to the school, right, and really put a stop to the circulation of this that was happening. And so I think it's important to share stories like that with your teenager. Um, because sometimes I know we're like, oh, I don't want to share horror stories. And it's not so much a horror story, but it's talking to your teen and saying, listen, you come get me, right? I don't care if you've been doing these inappropriate things, right? Like we can deal with that later. What I care is that you come and get me and we figure this out together. Because a teen, if they feel enough shame, oh, they're just going to hide. They're not going to be thinking rationally. And so we really want to let our teens know in no uncertain terms that we have their back, even if it's going to be messy and we're going to have to really do some damage cleanup. And man, they might be in trouble for a little bit, but that it is far better to get your help as a parent.
Oh, I couldn't just validate that more. Just the, sharing experiences with your teens, like what you shared, like letting them know about that, but mostly creating that safe place for your teen that they can come talk to you about anything. And what does that look like in your home to create a safe space? Does that mean I need to change my reactions when I first hear something that my teenager tells me? Do I need to not be so reactive? Do I need to think through things? Do I need to let my child know they're safe to come talk to me? Do I need to change my lingo, my language? Do I need to change just my reaction? Like, what do I need to do so that my teen feels safe no matter what they have done, no matter what mistake they have made, that they feel like they can come and talk to me? Or if it's not a mistake on their end, something that someone else has done online, as you talked about that, or any of the other things we've talked about, that they feel like they can come and talk to you no matter what it is. I think that is so vitally important. So my advice to all of you parents out there of teens is really do a little self-evaluation of, am I a safe place for my teenager?
Just to wrap up, I think sometimes I hear parents question sharing their own experiences of being like, well, I don't want to tell my kid the dumb things that I did in high school because I don't want them to repeat that, or I don't want them to maybe know that about me, that maybe I did something really dumb. And I'm a believer in, as long as they're older and mature enough to maybe handle that confidence that you're sharing with them. I don't know if I'd share it at like family home evening. Let me tell you this horrible thing I did as a teenager, but one on one with your teen and be like, hey, listen, I'm telling you about body safety because this and this happened to me as a teen and it felt uncomfortable and I didn't listen to that little voice in my head. Or, hey, listen, let me tell you when I got scammed or when I texted something inappropriate, right? And so maybe on a more one-on-one setting, that would be a more appropriate conversation to have with your teen when you kind of sense that that mood is right. If they're not receptive to that, then let's save those experiences for another time. But I am a believer in it's okay to share with your teen your own mistakes of being a teenager.
And you're learning from the mistakes and how you recovered and how you repaired and what you learned from it. I just think I'm just 100% agree with you on that, Abby.
Okay, well, mom and dad, we know that these are not fun conversations, right? Or we'd have them all the time. But please make this a priority in your home. And I think you'll be amazed at how resilient your teen can be when we've armed them with the right tools. So we can't wait to see you in our next episode. And we wish you the best of luck, mom and dad. You got this. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens with Cheree Murdock and Abbi Winslow. If you are looking for more tips to help your teenager, here's where you can find us. You can find Cheree Murdock on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching or on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find me, Abbi, on Instagram as Abbi Winslow or on my website, AbbiWinslow.com. Please rate and review our podcast and share with a fellow parent. Thanks for listening.